Good morning, this is Ocean Unit Day 2. Today we're going to cover the next two questions for our Ocean Unit, and those are, what does the ocean do, and what do we as people use the ocean for? So not only is the ocean home to fish and animals and plants and sea life, but also people use the ocean for their own personal use. People use the ocean for sports like boating and skiing and things like that, and diving, scuba diving. But people also use the ocean to house their boats and house like the way they catch food. Like in this picture here, I'm actually going to read this book in a little while. This is called The Snail and the Whale. Do you see how they have the boats parked in the ocean? So people actually use the ocean as like a parking lot sometimes. But they also use the ocean to catch food. The same way you go to a farm to find cows and chickens and animals like that we eat, you can also go to the ocean to find animals we eat too. People eat shrimp and crab and lobster and even all kinds of fish. So today I want to read you this book. It's called The Snail and the Whale by Julia Donaldson. And it's all about how this little snail used the ocean for his own use. So here we go. This is the tale of a tiny snail and a great big gray-blue humpback whale. This is a rock as black as soot, and this is the snail with an itchy foot. The sea snail slithered all over the rock and gazed at the sea and the ships in the dock. And as she gazed and sniffed and sighed, "The sea is deep and the world is wide. How I long to sail," said the very tiny snail. These are the other snails in the flock, who stuck all tight to the smooth black rock and said to the snail with the itchy foot, "Be quiet, don't wiggle, stay still, stay put." But the tiny sea snail sniffed and sighed and then cried, "I've got it, I'll just hitch a ride." This is the trail of the tiny snail, and the slithery trail that looped and curled and said, "Ride wanted around the world." This is the whale who came in the night, when the tide was high and the stars were bright. A humpback whale immensely long, a humpback whale immensely strong, who sang to the snail a wonderful song of shimmering ice and coral caves and shooting stars and enormous waves. This is the tale of the humpback whale. He held it out of the starlit sea and said to the snail, "Come with me." This is the sea, so wild and free, that carried the whale and the snail on his tail to towering icebergs in far-off lands, with fiery mountains and golden sands. These are the waves that arched and crashed, that foamed and frolicked and sprayed and splashed. The tiny snail on the tail of the whale. These are the caves beneath the waves, where colorful fish with leathery fins and sharks with hideous toothy grins swam past the whale and the snail on his tail. Remember how I told you that the deeper you go in the ocean, the darker the color gets of the water. This is the sky, so vast and high, sometimes sunny and blue and warm, sometimes filled with a thunderstorm, with zigzag lightning flashing and frightening the tiny snail on the tail of the whale. And she gazed at the sky and the sea and the land, the waves and the caves and the golden sand. She gazed and gazed, amazed by it all. And she said to the whale, "I feel so small." But then came the day the whale lost his way. These are the speedboats running a race, zigging and zooming all over the place, upsetting the whale with their ear-splitting roar, making him swim too close to the shore. And this is the tide slipping away. And this is the whale lying beached in a bay. "Quick, off the sand, back to the sea," cried the snail. "I can't move on land, I'm too big," moaned the whale. The snail felt helpless and terribly small and then said, "I've got it," and started to crawl. "I must not fail," said the tiny snail. This is the bell on the school in the bay, ringing the children in from their play. This is the teacher holding her chalk, telling the class, "Sit straight, don't talk." This is the board as black as soot. This is the snail with the itchy foot. "A snail! A snail!" The teacher turns pale. "Look," say the children, "it's leaving a trail." This is the trail of the tiny snail, a slithery trail saying, "Save the whale." These are the children running from school, fetching the fireman, digging a pool. Squirting and spraying to keep the whale cool. This is the tide coming into the bay. And these are the villagers shouting, "Hooray!" as the whale and the snail travel safely away. Back to the dock and the flock on the rock, who say, "How time's flown, and haven't you grown?" And the whale and the snail told their wonderful tale of shimmering ice and coral caves and shooing stars and enormous waves, and how the snail, so small and frail, with her looping and curling silvery tail, saved the life of the humpback whale. Then the humpback whale held out his tail, and on crawled snail after snail. And they sang to the sea as they all sat snail on the tail of the gray-blue humpbacked whale. The end. See, so whether big or small, everybody uses the ocean for something, whether it's to gather food to bring to our grocery store so that we can eat, or just for an adventure. My challenge to you today is to write 2 sentences using all the correct grammar and punctuation about what you would do if you were a snail on the tail of a humpback whale.